Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Nuff channel. In this video we're going to do our round 2 preview for the 2024 NRL SuperCoach season. So just a final look, the final time you'll see a season rank with 6 digits on it. That's being more optimistic than anything, but surely the boys can get a bit closer to their projected total this round. But before we sort of get into what I'm doing with my team, we'll have a look at, I guess, what's happening across the board. So I guess we like to look at the most popular trade outs and trade ins each round. For some reason, only the top 5 show. I think I can scroll down and get to 10. But we'll go through. So I think the first 2 are quite obvious. Spencer Leniu and Jai Arrow. So Spencer Leniu definitely out for 8 weeks. Jai Arrow definitely out in the short term and potentially out for the season. So, I think they're both definite trade outs, and there's definitely a couple of candidates for people that can replace them. I guess the issue with Leniu is that he is at that slightly lower price point. So, I mean, if you've got the cash to make the move, then it makes sense, but you definitely can't hold him, so you do have to probably use an extra trade if you need to trade him up and you haven't got the cash. The next 2, Palacia and Fermor. So Palacia I can get around. He didn't end up playing big minutes, even though he was named as starter lock. I don't even remember if he actually started. But, I think sort of similar to Leniu, he's at that awkward price. But I think you have to find the cash to sort of go up to those 430 type options, one of which will feature in a minute. Bo Fermor is one where I'd probably hold. So, you brought him in for a reason. At that mid price point, you had several options. You chose Bo Fermor because you believed in the pick. He has one flat game. Admittedly, the whole Titans team didn't look fantastic. But it's one of those sort of rage trades that we want to try to avoid at the start of the season. So if you got Fermor, I'd hold. You should have options to cover him this week, and then he will improve, and I think the Titans will a bit as well. Taumalolo at number 5, I think he is a trade out as well. Given at his price point, there is better options. I don't know what Payton's issue is with Taumalolo, but he might have turned him into a player that can't play big minutes, given that he hasn't given him the opportunity to really run the motor over the past few years. So I think Taumalolo is a legend of the past, but not one for 2024. Nick Cottridge, so obviously he's the one that's made way for Sebastian Kris to come back into the team. So I think, he's an obvious trade out. There is a couple of cheapies available, which could make it a bit easier to trade. But I think you've got to get rid of Kotrick. Ezra Mam, I think, is another smart trade out as far as round 2 trades go. I think if I had him, I'd try to hold and keep the faith because I picked him for a reason. But I can definitely see people moving on from him. There's a couple of options that have popped up that are cheaper, and obviously create more opportunity for value. So, and some people might see him as expendable in order to make money for another move. So I can understand it, but I think it's definitely one to think long and hard about before you commit. Brendan Piakura, so this is, I guess, the definition of a rage trade. And in the video I did yesterday, he was probably one of the biggest, give yourself a slap if you're trading him out. He's not going to get concussed every week. He's too good of a player to, not do well. We all picked him for that reason. So I think, if you've traded out Piakura, I'd be reversing that trade pretty quick smart. Dylan Lucas is another one who I'd probably suggest holding on to. it is a bit tricky because Kai Pierce Paul has got the start this week, and if he impresses, he may very well hold on to that spot. Um, but Lucas should only be out for 1 week. I think he had a HIA issue and a broken nose sort of thing, so he should be back ready to go next week. Um, and they might keep the faith with him and plug him straight back into the starting team. And Josh Adokar, I think he is a trade out. I don't know if he's ever been super fantasy relevant. Um, and sounds like he wants to play this week, but you would think surely they give him at least 1 week off, because if he keeps hurting that shoulder, he just turns into a walking target essentially every time he gets the ball. So I think give him at least a week off to recover. But even for our SuperCoach teams, there's definitely better players at that price that we could trade in. So speaking of the trade-ins, number one is Terrell May, and I agree. I think he is the best option this week, given that his role looks good. With Spencer Lenu out, it sort of frees up some job security as well. It's Rhea Hargraves was always coming back, but it's just a straight swap for Lenu now. So it all bodes well for Terrell. And with his sort of upside potential and his nice price point, I think he is one to definitely get in sooner rather than later. You don't have to go this week; you can wait another week. But particularly if there's a few moves you want to make in round three, he can be one that you can move on this week. Zach Labutt's number two on the list. So I think everyone's excited about him getting 100, but I'd wait a week. Just that 100 will only last 1 week in his price rises, and if he was to say get a 30 this week, his cash generation would be short and sharp. Um, so I'd wait on Labutt. There's probably bigger priorities this week for a lot of people. Um, but yeah, he's one you could definitely wait on. Ben Travojevic, I think, is a must-have given that he's named to start again this week. Schuster's coming back through reserve grade, so I don't think it's going to be a one-and-done deal for Schuster. He's going to have to earn his spot. And yeah, Burbo looked good. Get him in. Tom Flegler, so I can understand why people would get Tom Flegler in. If you already had May and you need to trade for Lenu, I think he is the next best option. But as I said in the Tops, Chops, Traps, and Slaps video yesterday, just be mindful he's not going to score a try every week. He won't get to that 70 points every week. He could feasibly get to an easy 50. And he won't make money at that price point, but just be mindful of what you're getting into. Morgan Smithies is fifth on the list, and I think you can absolutely get him in. I know Sangster called him the trade of the week. I think maybe that goes to May, but he's a close second. At his price point, his work rate, and the likelihood of minutes. There's more and more chat that Horsburgh will join the prop rotation going forward. I think Smithies is a great investment at that price. Josh Kerr, so I think this is a bit of a reactionary move. So again, he scored a try on the weekend. I didn't see the game, so I can't speak to his performance, but just based on the numbers, I think a lot of people are saying, well, he's cheap in the front row at the same price as Lenu. I'll just do a straight swap. And again, he might get that one rise in cash, but if he, scores a couple of 30s in the next couple of weeks, you're only literally going to get that one price rise. So just be mindful of that. I think there's better options, but if he is the only one that you can go to this week with the cash available, then so be it. For Taylor Mariner, so named on the bench, I guess he did come on and start last week. And given his score is pretty popular as a bit of a moneymaker, I'd wait a week. I know I had him as the trap in the video yesterday, but I think he could be viable. I just want to have a second look. I've sort of guessed that I think Eisenhuth is going to play a more prominent role than for Taylor Mariner. And then I guess Luciano Leilua in the fold will only sort of muddy those waters. Jacob Gagai at number 8. So I guess the fact that he's named for a second game was a bit surprising. I literally thought he was only in there for one game, but obviously did enough to earn a second crack. I did see unsubstantiated rumour that Tane Milne will come in, but I mean, the fact they named him means that he's eligible. Um, Again, it's one where I'm going to have wait a week and just see, if he gets that third game and is actually going to start making money. In that case, he's the perfect sort of downgrade to allow you to upgrade, one of these other options. Um, one of which being Taylor May at number 9. So I think he's only lower than Labour because more people started with May than Labour. But yeah, based on what I saw, I think he's the centre wing option to bring in if you are bringing in one. Um, Obviously, if you've already got him, then I guess Labour would make sense. But again, it's one of those ones where you can sit and wait an extra week. Um, his price isn't going to get away from you. It might do if you don't get on him next week. But for now, you can have a second look and just assess. Number 10, Lockie Galvin. So I guess, obviously named to start, which is awesome. Um, I think what you can do, though, is you can wait until round 4 when he has his third game, just to see, how serious this injury with Caesar is, or if it is, that Benji's going to back the younger guys in Sullivan and Galvin in the halves. Um, so, yeah, we can definitely have a look. You could even, if you've got, say, a Flanagan like I do, you could get one price rise out of him and then flip and make, about 200 or bank about 200k. So I think that would be my strategy with Galvin is to wait. But I mean, if you need to make the money for another trade, okay, Galvin is probably worth a shout. So I guess that's the popular trade options. Have a look at the popular captaincy options. So we'll go all captains, or sorry, all coaches, because it's all very sporadic at the moment. And you can see it's fairly well stretched out. So 20% on Cleary against the Eels this week. I guess, you know, tipping he'll bounce back. Only 12.3% on Hines against the Dogs. I guess obviously the VC might be a viable option potentially, but I just think, given they have a point to prove from last week, they're at home. As much as it pains me to say the Bulldogs weren't too impressive in week 1 and they might still be trying to work things out. So it's sort of that perfect storm where I think you can just straight see him. Even if you've got Titans players, it may not necessarily be the best week for a loophole. Kalen Ponga against the Cowboys up in Townsville isn't the most inspiring matchup, but we've seen that he can do it against any team anywhere. So if you believe in the pick, that makes sense. But yeah, I might be looking elsewhere. I think I do have the VC on him, but that's just purely as a backup to Hines. I can't have Cleary given that he'll be on the bench. Tom Travojevic, I think, is actually a good shout for a captaincy or vice captaincy if you can swing it. Just given that they're playing at Four Pines, I think it's an afternoon game, so that's usually the perfect cocktail for Turbo to go off. Payne Haas, obviously a rock solid captain option. Being in the first game, you could potentially VC and loop if he does get a nice score. But if you just want to bank a captaincy option and not stress about the guns flopping again, makes sense to get on Payne Haas. Sort of very well spread out at the moment. So Reece Walsh as captain, again, I'd probably VC him. He's the sort of perfect VC play, given they play tonight against the Rabbitohs. Drinkwater as a VC, I guess, or captain or VC. If it's good enough for Ponga, it's good enough for Drinkwater. Val Holmes, obviously, off the back of a big score, is popular. I'd prefer a VC, but that's just me. Latrell, perfect VC candidate for tonight. And SJ, I guess, if you've got him in your halves over Hines or um, Cleary, I can understand. But against the Storm, given how well they defended against Penrith last week, I don't think I would have Johnson myself. But I'm sitting in the 100,000s overall, so who am I to tell you what to do? All right, so in terms of, I guess, my team this week, so as much as possible, I don't like to trade in round one. I guess, I picked all these players for a reason. Um, so like the underwhelming guys, like obviously Hines and Cleary, I think they'll bounce back. Even like I'd like to have another look at Salmon and Hutchinson before I sort of commit to getting rid of one of them. The one obvious glaring issue I think is Totola. So, I was thinking he might sort of play a few more minutes, but from what it looks like, South have essentially four middle forwards on their bench this week. And there is a clear and obvious option that we can, sideways to, that offers more upside, I think, in the long run, and I guess, would make my team look a bit nicer, I think. So I guess as well, I'm going to try and utilise the watch list a bit more this year. Um, so it shows up here, which is nice. You can sort of look in the team. And I've got Terrell May at the top because he's the obvious one that's going to go in. But some of the others I'm having a look at, obviously Galvin from the Tigers, Far Tape, another one. So it sounds like Justin Olam will be back in round four. So Far Tape might only get 2 games. So, I can see people wanting to bring him in, bottom dollar cheapy, starting in the centres. But just wait till he plays that third game, a bit similar to Gagai. And then we can look at that as a downgrade option. Alex Seyfarth's another one. We can wait till round four. Tallis Duncan will be the same. He's starting on the edge, and they haven't really named like a Jacob Host on the bench. So he could play big minutes, which would be pretty cool at his price. I've got May and Laybart, obviously, we're going to keep an eye on. Kai Pierce Paul as well. Um, and then Jake Averillo will be a round four option, given that he hasn't played yet. And I do have Jacob Gagai there on the list too. So realistically, um, there's 5 players that I may want to trade in the next 2 rounds. So I'm happy to use a boost next week. So what that may mean is I'm going to have to make a choice between May or Labour, and I think I'll lean towards May, just based on what I saw. I obviously again didn't see Labour play that Sunday game, but I think the 103 is a bit inflated, whereas the 67 was purely Taylor May doing Taylor May things. Obviously, if Pierce Paul reverts to the bench in week 3, Dylan Lucas comes back, it might make the choice easier. But again, this is why I want more information. So yeah, and then I guess it's a little bit trickier in week 4, given that I've got identified 4 or 5 potential targets already for that week, depending on how they go. Um, but it may be a case of we use our second trade boost in week 3, and that'll get us 7 trades in the first 3 rounds, which sounds about right. So we will make that trade. Totola out, Terrell May in. So it actually makes us 5k, which is pretty handy. So we'll save that. And then I guess in terms of setting up the team for this week, so we're going to stick with Hines as the straight captain. So, we'll just back Ponga in as the vice captain, but we won't be using the loophole. Because if Hines is out, we'll probably just flip to Cleary on the starting team and he'd be captain anyway. Might have to do a quick one given that it kicks off at 5 and then 7. But then I think we need to bring Tua Picky in, so I'm happy to swap him with Hutchinson. I think Salmon will do better, assuming he gets more minutes in the lock forward role. Strange is an interesting one against the Tigers as well. Could come into calculations, but and it could be like, well, do we switch out RTS or Tua Picky given they are playing against the Storm? Actually, I might go this way. So I'm going to give RTS another chance, but I might just put Strange in there as a bit of a differential. Um, but the Tigers could just come out and do the business. Based on their trial form, though, I wouldn't have thought so. So I could potentially reserve to a picky, but I want to play Pappenhausen. I want to play Cleary. I think, and like these 5-second rollers, I think I'm happy to back in again. So I just need to move Kikau on field for, I guess, Smithies, because these guys play in the first two games of the round, and then Smithies and Lukey on the bench. So I think that's how the team is going to set up. Don't need to press save or anything on this, which is nice. And yeah, so that's the team going into round two. Hopefully things can only get better. So obviously, if you've got any questions or comments or thoughts that you want to share, feel free to get them down below this video in the comment section. If you enjoy the SuperCoach content, remember to give the video a like, subscribe for all the fantasy content on the channel, and other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.